great question, and the question essentially is, passing marriage in New York was a legislative battle that went through the legislature, involved the governor, involved people lobbying the legislature, making their voices heard to their legislators and urging them to vote the way the people wanted them to vote, as it turned out, and passing a law. In North Carolina, what you're being summoned to do is to first prevent harm being done. Try to block a discriminatory amendment that would tie into the Constitution, that would tie the hands of your legislature and of government officials and universities and others, and prevent your generation 5 years from now, 10 years from now, from thinking this through and approaching it differently. So first and foremost, you're being asked to block something bad, not immediately pass something definitive and good. And secondly, as you rightly note, this is a battle where the deciders for now are going to be the electorate, not the legislature. So what's the blueprint? How do we do that? So the first thing I would say is that at every stage in this human rights struggle, as in so many others in American history, we've been told, and people like you have been told, it can't be done. So when we started seeking the freedom to marry, people said you'll never win that. The whole idea of gay and marriage in the same sentence is an oxymoron. It'll never happen. And then as the American people began to have this strong, powerful debate about marriage and why marriage matters and who gay people really are, public opinion started to shift. And people started to begin thinking about something they'd never thought about before. And it suddenly looked like, well, maybe you can get people to really think this through and move past stereotypes and discomfort. And then we were told, well, that may be true. Maybe you can get some people to believe in this, but you'll never get a court to do it. A court will never have the courage to do the right thing. And then once we won in court, and courts began striking down this discriminatory exclusion, we were told, well, you'll only possibly get it in places like Massachusetts or on the coasts. You'll never get it in the rest of the country. You'll never get this discrimination ended. And then, of course, Iowa ended discrimination in marriage and remains a state where the locusts and tornadoes have not swept the state from the map. Gay couples are still getting married, both gay and non-gay, and no one's been harmed. So then they said, well, all right, maybe you'll get it on the coast, but you'll never get a legislature to do it. You might get a judge to do it, but you'll never get a legislature to do it. And then, of course, in succession, we saw legislatures in places like Vermont, in our nation's capital, the District of Columbia, passing marriage bills, most recently in New York. And then we were told, well, maybe you'll get a legislature to do it, but you'll only get Democrats to do it. You'll only get liberals. And then, of course, in New York, it was a Republican-led chamber with Republican senators providing the margin of victory on top of a strong Democratic vote that passed the marriage bill most recently. So now the one remaining frontier in the political system is, can you, as a small minority, get the majority to vote, in this case, against a discriminatory amendment? And it's a very tall order, because if it were so simple as the minority just turning to the majority and saying, please stop discriminating against us, and the majority just always did the right thing right away, American history and the history of North Carolina would look very, very different. So it's a very tall order to have to do that, and it shouldn't have to happen. It's an outrage that this has been put on the ballot, that anyone's basic freedoms in America should be put to an up or down vote of someone else, whether it's freedom of speech or freedom of religion or the freedom to marry. But here we are, and this is our moment, and this is the place. So it's a tall order, but just as every other barrier in this human rights momentum has been overcome, so we will win one, and you have the chance to make North Carolina the first. And how will you do that? The key to doing it is what I said earlier. Don't assume anyone reachable has been reached. Take a personal responsibility as well as a collective responsibility through the campaign that we have to build and support to reach the people who are persuadable and, as you rightly note, make sure they vote. Turn them out. Republican primary or otherwise, turn them out. That's the way to do it. Persuade and turn them out. And do that through your own personal engagement with people and through the collective machine of a campaign. And on persuasion, remember I said on the one hand, don't write anybody, don't assume anybody's there. You have to connect the dots and make sure you've asked, and then you turn them out. And don't write people off. At the same time, you don't have to start with the hardest. You don't have to spend all your time banging your head on the wall when there are so many others who are reachable but have not yet been reached. People who have not yet been asked. People who have not yet been signed up. People who have not yet had their concerns and questions answered. Find them, add your voice to it, support the campaign to reach them, and then make sure that enough of them turn out. That's the formula for winning.